Hey, I hope I can stay live today without my internet crapping out. If that happens, then what I'm going to do is I'll do like I did yesterday. I'll end the live stream. I will immediately do a video. I would rather not do that. Okay. We've hit the part of the year where it's just hot all the time. So you're sloppily dressed. Your hair is always on the top of your head. You try to wear the most minimal underwear on the planet if you bother with it at all. Okay, I'm Suzanne Tickemeyer. I used to write a column for Pathos for over 10 years called No Longer Quivering. It dealt with the quiverful evangelical movement and looked at evangelicalism and all kinds of fundamentalism. So that's the perspective I'm coming from today. Hey, Super Fun Sherry. These are just my opinions. Don't bully anybody. Don't even be rude in the comments. So I just have to throw this out. I know that somebody has a sick child at home, but she is really missing out on everything that she absolutely loves and makes money off of. There is so much happening right now in the quiverful world. What do I mean? Well, Jessa Duggar Seewald made a terrible announcement yesterday. She has apparently suffered a miscarriage, and my thoughts go out to her and Ben right now. That is really a tough thing, and it happened over the holidays. I had that happen to myself, and let me tell you, pregnancy loss is hard normally, but if you have pregnancy loss during a holiday, it's really the worst. I can just throw that out there. It's bad. It definitely puts a huge damper on your entire holiday, so I hope she does better. I also have to mention Karissa Collins, and I haven't seen WOACB mention Karissa more than a handful of times. I haven't mentioned her latest birth. There's been all kinds of speculation and crazy going on over that. She had another child. I don't know how many that makes for her, but it is a pile, 10 maybe. If you follow Karissa, her kids are all named rather strange A names, and they seem to be in and out of the hospital a lot with lots of preventable sounding injuries, different broken bones and things. Well, she had a home birth with this latest one yet again, and the baby ended up in the hospital for roughly 2 weeks now, but that's not really what I want to talk about. The baby apparently, I don't know exactly, but whatever happened, he had to have 2 weeks of antibiotics, of IV antibiotics, which is not a good situation. It usually means there's inhaled meconium or something of that nature, some kind of massive infection that they have to get rid of. But that's not what I want to talk about with her. She posted something today or last night that just rang my chimes that I want to discuss real quick. Somebody was posting. Okay. Oh, hey, Noelle. Yeah. Karissa is the one who is married to Andre. She's white, he's black. That's fine. But she tries to make sure all of her kids have blonde hair and blue eyes, and she's rather bizarre. Hey, Shelly, Karen, Virus. So she is always bragging about how she homeschools her kids. It looks like she makes the kids do all the work. The kids are in and out of the hospital frequently. And she says lots of just really horrible, quiverful things to the. And I sadly am just waiting for something super tragic to happen with that family, because there seems to be very little care of the children. There's no protection of them. She frequently dresses them all up in matching clothing, and you see that she's trying to make sure everybody has blonde hair and blue eyes. It's just the most bizarre thing I've ever seen. I try not to mention her too often, because she does definitely have a lot of martyr baiting complex things going on, and I don't want to feed that. With none of these quiverful, funny town people do I ever want to feed their martyrbation. I totally remember now. She sent KJ the sweatshirt. Yes, and KJ put on full protective gear to unwrap it like it was some kind of nuclear waste instead of what it was, which is a striped sweatshirt. Hey, Lorna. So Karissa had her baby in the hospital. All that. Well, this morning or last night, I don't remember. I didn't look at the exact timing. Someone was talking on one of her um, Facebook or Twitter, one of her social medias, and was talking about the need for mothers to take a me day in order to maintain their mental health. I am all for that. I'm just going to throw that out there. Motherhood is hard. Okay. It's really hard. I finished raising my kids. I did that. It's just incredibly hard if you're not doing that. You really need to do that as a mother. It's okay to take time off. It's okay to do something for a day that doesn't involve homeschooling or cooking or anything else. It's okay to do those things. It really is. And if it keeps you sane and regular and on the path of doing what you're supposed to do as a mama, I am all for that. So, where, hey, Jan, where it went toxic, weird, and awful is that Karissa said, not necessarily. She said that you could do it completely alone by yourself with just Jesus and God. The lady who'd been talking about taking the breaks was decrying the fact that we no longer had communities of people to help out. And I agree with that. It's an awful situation that we no longer have that, because moms groups are a good resource, and like a babysitting cooperative is an excellent thing. So she was doing promotion of those sort of things, the whole community aspect that we no longer have. And Karissa was like, no, 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 we don't need that. We just need God. We just need God. No, we need that time. We have to carve out that separate mental health time for ourselves. I talk about mental health a lot here and about making your boundaries, keeping your boundaries, doing what you need to do to keep you moving and grooving. Self knowledge of what it is that fills your tank is one of the most important things that we can do. So Karissa really gets that horribly wrong. Um, the other thing is, for the last 2 days, I have been reading the Frankfurt Declaration. Those of you who don't know what the Frankfurt Declaration is, and I'm stumbling over my words this morning. Oh, heavenly dog. Okay. It was written by John MacArthur, and we know who John MacArthur is. He is he's the pastor over at Grace Community Church in Los Angeles. He is quite influential. He runs the Master's Seminary. I've talked about him before because he ran the seminary that my pastor at my old toxic quiverful church went to receive his master's and his PhD in divinity. So I got to hear from the pulpit a lot of John MacArthur's worst ideas, and I was never a big fan of his. Lately, his church and him have really come under a lot of fire, and it was ironic that Jessa Duggar Seewald's book came out when it did, Becoming Free Indeed, to support John MacArthur, because there have been a whole huge pile of scandals involved with Grace Community Church, including a former board member that has come out and said that there's been significant SA that's been covered through the years, and how the church is not really safe for any survivor of SA. And a lot of times women who've been SA'd would be blamed for their own SA. That is some BS. I'm going to throw that out there. I hate that. I hate when I hear that stuff happens, because SA and spiritual A is some of the most awful things on the planet. It can really screw with you for years. Oh, so this Frankfurt Declaration came out. And I will read you a couple passages. I linked to the actual declaration so you can read it yourself. It's a huge document. That's why it took me 2 to 3 days to digest this thing and think about it. The funny snark read on Reddit, the subreddit, somebody went through and broke it down and highlighted the most toxic passages. So I want to read the toxic passages and talk about those because it's just too much. It's like a download of the most awful things. It involves social justice. They are coming out hard against any kind of social justice. And you and I know we live in an imperfect world. And if you're a believer, you'd think we live in an imperfect, fallen world. So no matter which perspective you're looking at it from, it's less than perfect. And the whole social justice movement, even if you don't totally agree with 100% of it, it's really needed. Time has come to address some of these issues in our communities and to stop judging how other people are living their lives. This is not going to be that document. And one of the people who designed and wrote this thing had input into it is Vodi Bochum. Vodi is one of the few African American quiverful pastors out there. He did a film called The Return of the Daughters. It was all about keeping your daughters at home, keeping the house, and not allowing them to work, not allowing them much outside anything, to keep them pure and to pick out somebody for them to court, the whole courtship model. He did that, The Return of the Daughters, and it's a pretty frightening documentary. Parts of it, I'm not sure if the whole things are, parts of it are on YouTube. So you can Google that and it'll pop up. So Vodi is kind of also somebody with a lot of scandal connected to him. Social justice warriors have gone way too far now. It's insane. Yeah, they have. They've gone too far. But as I keep telling my husband, he was flipping out when the whole Me Too movement happened. It was like, oh, it's too far. It's too far. Well, as I told him, oh, hey, Jamie. Yeah, I'm trying to enjoy the sun. I was trying to keep from sweating to death because this is our summer. These movements come, these radical movements, and they sweep through. And a lot of times they do address real problems that need to end. The whole thing that the Me Too movement was addressing was something horrible and systemic that had gone on for so many years. And I can testify to that. I can testify to what it is like to be a young woman who's not flat chested in a dirty minded world where every man thinks that because you're asking for a job or a favor or you're just slightly being nice to them, that you owe them sex. I can tell you what that's like. I can tell you about jobs I worked in college, like one where I was working at a high-end manufacturing jewelers, and I'm sitting there on the phone in the diamond room. The boss comes in and sticks his hand down my bra and grabs my boobs. I can tell you about those things, the awful old time. My daughter and I were watching Mad Men. She kept saying, it can't possibly have been that bad. I was like, no, it was worse. It was worse than what we're seeing on the screen in a lot of regards. So Me Too movement, I'm just using it as an example. So as I told him, I said it was so far to the bad side for so many years that now the pendulum has gone way too far the other way, and it is going to come plumb center at some point where the women will be able to report SA, be believed, be taken seriously and dealt with without it going extreme SA or everything is SA, but right plumb in the middle. And that's what I see is going to happen with this social justice thing. There are some things in our society that needs to change. Everybody, regardless of sex, race, sexuality, needs to be treated the same. We all need to have the same rights. So I think that that's what's going to happen. It has happened. It's gone too far to one side. Just wait. It will right itself. Yeah, my niece is one. Can be annoying. She white knights for everything. I know. I've known a number of people like that. So much worse. My boss's boss just as me to meet him on the weekend. Just me. Oh my goodness. Now they're, yeah, that's the problem. So there's so much of this that just needs to change. Been through it, waiting for change for everything in this world. So Vody Bochum and John MacArthur have come out against all of that. And Vody had to run away to Africa because they were talking about charges against him for some of the stuff he'd done. So he ran away for some time to Africa. Hey, Grace Peter. And only came back when he started having heart problems bad enough to go to the Mayo Clinic. He came back with his $1,600 leather suitcases. A pastor in a poor country with $1,600 leather suitcases. As if. John MacArthur's had a lot of his scandals recently. I mentioned that I thought the timing of Ginger's book was odd. It's come out that he's had long COVID. I feel bad for him. I hope he heals. It's also come out, like I said, about the victims of his church. And I've heard allegations that his wife has dementia and he stuck her in a nursing home in another state. And that's not that unusual. I know some other guys in the whole evangelical movement have done that. And I'm just like, you don't even visit your wife? That kind of blows my mind because if it was me, I would be like my mother-in-law was with my father-in-law. I'd be up there every day visiting, or at least 2 or 3 times a week, okay? I just can't imagine abandoning someone to memory care. It does strikes me as wrong. So now you have an understanding about who came up with these things. And the awful thing is Jeremy, Ginger's husband, has signed off on this. Allie B. Stuckey, a prominent cultural influencer, and many others have publicly signed off on that. Yeah, exactly, Grace Peter. She was just a convenience for him. And a lot of times in Quiverful and in evangelical, non-denominational Christianity, women are mere conveniences for men. As long as you're popping out babies, teaching Sunday school, cooking dinner, and making the man's life easier, then yes, you're a good, funky wife. If you're not, then guess what? Guess where you can go? You can go somewhere else and you'll be replaced. And if you are not replaced, you will be ignored. I saw that so many times at my old Quiverful church, especially in regards to women that would die of preventable illnesses. Their husbands would buy a new Corvette, get themselves a younger, bouncier, cool girl wife, and continue on. I always found that repulsive. So I put links to this stupid document in the description and Fundy Snark on Reddit because they've really broken it down. Okay, the first page puts this is really a toxic one. We deny that the postmodern ideologies derived from the intersectionality, radical feminism, and critical race theory are consistent with biblical teaching. So basically, they're denying that the women's movement and everything else has anything to do. That if you think that Black history needs to be taught, then you are somehow not biblical, which blows my mind because history is history, no matter where it comes from. Okay, so there's another section here. Although families, groups, and nations can collectively and cultures can be predisposed to particular sins, subsequent generations share the collective guilt of their ancestors only if they approve and embrace or attempt to justify those sins. So they are talking about moral culpability for another person's sin. And this is where they get this whole ridiculous generational sin and generational cursing. They say things come down through families. Well, things do come down through families. thinking about this earlier because my great grandmother taught art at the Mental Institution in Mandeville, Louisiana, and I've always done art, and there are others in the family too. CRT isn't about Black history. It's so much more. I know that, super fun, Sherry. I'm just using the little tiny descriptive on it. It's so much more. I am in favor of arming everybody with the maximum amount of scientific knowledge and realism and history as possible. I have always been a big fan of history. You can learn a lot if you just study history. So there's so much in their statement that is so wrong. And feminism has brought about some pretty significant changes that are all positive. Okay, now this really blows my mind. We further deny that one's ethnicity establishes any necessary connection to any particular sin. Now that's a damn lie, because I have heard these people speak about this group or that group, and they have said, well, that's that culture. That is what they do. They impregnate their women at 12, or they do this, or they sleep with camels, and they're always out by the curb drinking malt liquor and playing rap music. Let's not do that. And they're going to pretend they're not doing that. And I know damn good and well they are. I wonder if YouTube is going to spank me for this, because every time I talk about John MacArthur, they demonetize the stream. Okay. The curse of sin results in sinful, disordered affections that manifest in some people as same-sex attraction. That is not at all what homosexuality is about, or the interconnectedness of all these different sexualities. It blows my mind that that is where they're going with this, that they're blaming a person's sexuality on sin, as if we reject, quote, gay Christian, unquote, as a legitimate biblical category. Oh my. No, 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 no. That is, to me, they're just shooting their own feet off. I mean, they're losing members left and right, and they're doing this stuff. The generational sin doctrine is so damaging. Absolutely. It's one of the more damaging things that they teach. Okay, the next section had to do with complementarianism, which John MacArthur is a complementarian. We further affirm that the image of God is expressed most fully and beautifully in human society when men and women walk in obedience to their God-ordained roles and serve according to their God-given gifts. Now, this is where complementarianism and patriarchy split, okay? Patriarchy says that women must be in these roles. Men do this, women do this, and that is the way it is. Complementarism just dresses it up in fancier words. It just says women are gifted with X, Y, and Z and patience and this and that and the other thing. That is the biggest bunch of malarkey. I can see that in my own life. And when I tried to be a complementarianism, do certain things, have my husband do certain things, guess what? We were a miserable failure at that, because neither one of us were operating in our gifts. So we had to abandon that. And there's still those times when I haul out the hammer or the ratchet and he washes dishes. It just happens because we happen to be gifted in very different ways, and that is okay. That's how God made us. But this baloney. So race, ethnicity is where we are now. And here's the highlighted portions. From an unstated attitude of superiority to an overt spirit of resentment. They say that doesn't have any part. They deny that. They deny that happens even. It has no part. We reject any teaching that encourages racist groups to view themselves as privileged oppressors or entitled victims of oppression. Well, that's really funny because they have a lot of white supremacy people that are linked to them. We deny that a person's feeling of offense or oppression necessarily prove that someone else is guilty of sinful behaviors, oppression, or prejudice. Okay, well, that may or may not be a symptom of whether someone has actually been oppressed. But you know something? If somebody feels like they have, it behooves us to speak to that feeling, even if we don't believe that it's true, to say, hey, I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that. What is wrong with acknowledging that and just moving on, acknowledging it? I think if we acknowledge people's pain and their offense, this world will be a whole lot better place. Okay, here we come to culture. We affirm that some cultures operate on assumptions that are inherently better than those of other cultures because the biblical truths that inform those worldviews that have been produced, that have produced these distinct assumptions. Oh my word. They just said that they are better because they believe in the Bible. That is the biggest, another big pile of malarkey. Racism still. And we emphatically deny that lectures on social issues for activism aimed at reshaping the wider culture are as vital to the health and life of the church as the preaching of the gospel and the exposition of scriptures. Historically, such things tend to become distractions. You know, this is starting to read. This is all starting to read like you could take these things and just change a few words around and make them apply during slavery times in the U.S. I don't see any God. I don't see any forgiveness in any of this. I just see we're so much better than you. We're so much better than you. And this is how we're looking at this. This is what we're doing. And you just need to sit down and ferme la bouche, as my great grandmother used to say, shut your mouth. So you've gotten to the worst little bits of this that I've just still been fuming over and rereading and rereading and rereading and rereading. And the initial signers of this thing are John MacArthur, of course, Vodi Bochum, who I've spoken about, Phil Johnson, Josh Buice. I hate to mangle his name. He is the pastor of Praise Mill Baptist Church. And Phil Johnson has to do with John MacArthur's ministry. So there's a bunch of others that are connected to him and to his ministries that sign this thing. And right under them is Jeremy Volo, Ginger Duggar's husband. And there are a lot of others that really surprised me and horrified me that signed this thing. Allie Beth Stuckey, Miss I'm so much better than everybody, and I'm the cultural enforcer. But I did laugh at this. Somebody signed it from the First Church of the Battletoads. The rest of the people who signed this thing, you can pretty much go through it. You're looking at a pile, and I mean a pile of just Funkytown cultural enforcers jumping on the bandwagon. This is not going to make John MacArthur's Grace Community Church problems go away. This is only going to anger those of us that have brains and think and realize how dangerous it is. All of these assumptions are dangerous. It reads almost like John MacArthur is trying to end up on the Southern Poverty Law Center's list of CULTs and dangerous hate groups. I think until the church lets go of all this nonsense and starts loving people exactly where they are without worrying about what their sin levels are, we're just going to have nonsense. We're going to have fighting. We're going to have divisions, all of that. I've talked about these recently, these revivals, and how I don't consider revival a revival until there's fruit. And even fruitless revivals have their moments of fruit. I feel like what needs to happen is what I saw happen at a Toronto conference once in Houston, where this Assemblies of God minister got up and talked about unity in the body. Okay. And at the end, he invited all the faith leaders to get up there. And he got a variety. There were a couple of Catholic priests, there was a Lutheran, there was a Jewish rabbi, all these different types. And what ended up happening was they washed each other's feet in a signifier of unity. It was one of the most moving things I've ever seen in my entire life. I think we really need to get back to that kind of unity. And I think that documents like the Frankfurt Declaration drive us apart even further. Self-righteous people suck. I am sorry. If you are a self-righteous and you think you know it all, just go over there. I don't want to even deal with you, because that's not at all going to benefit anybody except yourself. Okay, I am going to go. My voice, I'm losing it. That's the only drag about this time of the year, besides the fact that we sometimes lose internet and power, is that I start reacting left and right to pollen. So I never have a voice. I'm like, ugh. Sitting here eyeballing this thing, grinding my teeth, going like this, thinking about it, and trying to summon up enough voice to talk about it so I can explain why I think it's so toxic and what it is. Thank you to the subreddit Fundy Snark, because you saved me having to go through this entire multi-page document with a highlighter going over the worst bits of it to bring here. I heard about the foot washing. That was beautiful. Yeah, it was. Cheap glass, that was one of the most beautiful things I've ever experienced. And that was fruit. That was real fruit that came out of revival that I didn't think had much fruit. And I'd like to see that more of that stuff going on. I think unity is the way to go. And I think that until we can get to that point, it's just going to keep being awful. And for all of you that are going to show up here from whatever church and tell me how I'm awful and I'm sad and I'm going to HE double hockey sticks in a basket, I have already decorated that basket. I have a soft pillow, candles, and snacks. I am not interested in you telling me about the basket any longer. So posting something awful and judgmental only gets you moved to Jerks for Jesus. And when I move you to Jerks for Jesus, I may make fun of you. Have a blessed Saturday. And you guys, I love you. Thank you for watching. Do all the YouTube things. Hit like, subscribe. Do all that if you feel led to. Okay, I'm glad you did too, Kayla. I'll see all you guys later. I may come back tomorrow. I may have something new to rant about. And like I said, I can't believe that Katie Joy missed all of this. There's so many things to talk about right now. So if you have somebody that's claiming to tear apart, to dismantle CULTs, she sure has missed a bunch of crap this week. See you guys later.